Be imperfect and stop making things so complicated. These are just two of the emerging trends in marketing, and we're going to explain why. Join us as we unpack what we learned this year at South by Southwest. Hey everyone, I'm Zelasko, Principal at SE2. We're challengers creating change on today's most pressing issues. For the uninitiated, South by Southwest is a yearly event that brings together challengers and game changers in business, tech, art, culture, and politics. So it's apropos that we were there to learn about emerging issues that will affect our world today and tomorrow. And every year it's an opportunity to see and experience what's next in technology, like this lifelike hologram that mimics augmented reality, but without the glasses. And every year, brands and advocacy organizations find creative ways to tell their stories. Lush Cosmetics, the Zen Education Project, and the African American Policy Forum created this activation that offered visitors the opportunity to understand and explore the full scope of the education crisis facing educators and students across the United States. Visitors could explore the banned books and a map highlighting states that have implemented more than 2,500 book bans in just the past 18 months. Slavery and indentured labor are widespread in the fashion industry. And this installation by the Human Rights Foundation put a real face on the people that are being exploited for fast and cheap fashion. So now let's talk about the trends. To get there, we stepped back and reflected on the many sessions spanning a range of topics and industries we attended at South by. And from this, we identified the common themes that emerged across sessions. So now let's talk about the 3 things that we'll have on our radar for 2023 and beyond. Storytelling is a perennial recommendation. We hear about the importance of it in almost every conference we attend, and you probably do too. But we heard and saw a uniquely different and unusual take on storytelling from many brands and organizations at South by. Communicators are increasingly telling imperfect stories. These stories didn't yet have a tidy resolution or a hero that saved the day. One of the panelists actually talked about the psychology of this type of story. Imperfect stories make you an active participant in the story because the outcome isn't foregone. In these stories, you still have the opportunity to get involved, to become part of it, while stories that use the common problem, solution, impact recipe have their place in marketing. Psychologically speaking, this type of storytelling has one major drawback. You see, because our brain must manage so many inputs, it's always taking shortcuts. One shortcut it takes is assessing whether something needs immediate attention or not. Another is that our brain will jump in and fill gaps when things are unresolved. So when it comes to our brain, imperfect stories pique our brain's desire to prioritize the urgent. That is, a story that's happening right now versus a less urgent story that already happened sometime in the past. And our brain will create solutions to fill in the gaps in the unresolved story. Telling more imperfect stories is one way that you can pique interest and invite people to become part of the story and the solution. Across sessions, leaders spoke about the importance of pushing for simplicity in communications and marketing. Perhaps this is a reaction to a barrage of negative things happening in the world and its seemingly ever-increasing unpredictability. Or perhaps it gets back to brain science. After all, we're wired and we have a brain bias that conflates complexity with quality. So we tend to value complex solutions over simple ones. But brain science also tells us that when confronted with options, we will almost always choose the easier one or the status quo. See the problem there? To create change, communications and marketing leaders talked about embracing 3 tactics to simplify. The first, one-page plans. Sally Sussman, the Executive Vice President and Chief Corporate Affairs Officer at Pfizer, talked about how Pfizer moved to one-page plans for even the most complex communications challenges. One-page plans force focused thinking that prioritizes the single most important issue to tackle and the most meaningful strategies to create change. The second way they're creating simplicity is through simplified messaging that focuses on what to gain. Lost frame messages trigger a stress response, which hinders problem solving and adds more complexity to decision making. Dr. Birx, who led the federal COVID response, noted that this was a fatal flaw of the government's initial communications about the COVID vaccine. The motivating messages weren't about avoiding serious disease and death, but rather what you had to gain, like getting back to normal. And finally, leaders are removing barriers and not messaging around them to create more simplicity. Oftentimes we get so caught up in getting people motivated about the issues that we forget about the real-world barriers that ultimately prevent them from taking action. Organizations are stepping back and leveraging experienced design principles and behavioral economics to remove barriers that prevent change. Several nonprofit leaders talked about simplifying applications, optimizing accessibility, or even redesigning whole programs to remove as many barriers as possible. The result? Their communications are focused on the issues, not the logistics. The message across sessions was clear: it's no more business as usual. Certainly, tools like AI are going to change how we do business. In fact, for many organizations, it already is. But we're not talking about how AI is going to change business in this video. Organizations of all types and sizes talked about the duty they feel to be more responsible partners to their people, their communities, and the environment. They've moved beyond corporate social responsibility. Instead, ESG, or environmental social governance, is what leading organizations are using to make meaningful and measurable impact. ESG uses environmental, social, and governance factors and data to evaluate sustainability practices within a company. ESG helps consumers decide which businesses to support and which not to, by giving them an indication if a company's practices and actions align with their own values. According to a recent study, 70% of consumers want to see a business act on social issues. Investors, too, want business to provide societal benefits. For those working in the nonprofit and government space, consumers' expectations for more socially responsible businesses that actually make an impact is an opportunity for you to elevate your business issues and causes and find corporate partners who will support them financially or with their people power. The key is to find businesses that are uniquely aligned with your work. For example, Lyft's head of social impact talked about how they make ESG decisions. They're of course uniquely qualified to provide transportation solutions, so they support and invest in organizations that seek to expand access to voting by providing transportation or fighting policies like those recently passed in Texas that would make drivers criminally and civilly liable for transporting pregnant people to receive abortion care. This shift in consumer preferences creates an opportunity for nonprofit and government agencies to find synergistic fits with private business that advance your organization's mission and make their business more socially responsible. So there you have it. Those are our 3 big takeaways from South by. What opportunities do imperfect storytelling, embracing simplicity, and increased demand for brand activism have for your organization? Not sure? Well, we've linked some resources below. Check them out. Or reach out and let's talk about it. We hope you found this video interesting and insightful. Now let's get out there and go create change.